Hey everybody, it's Matt Michaels here on the DeFalco Files with the owner and creator of FSW, the Future Stars of Wrestling here in Las Vegas, Mr. Joe DeFalco. Joe, what a weekend it was! It was the survival of the fittest, and I guess the first question was, how fit were you? Did you survive?
Let me tell you something. I barely survived. I walked in the building, and within 5 minutes, up until around showtime, I was as aggravated as I've ever been.
And so, what type of thing? If you walk into the arena, it's a fresh day, everything's new, people are doing stuff. What is it that essentially starts sending everything into a spiral when you first get to the arena?
Well, it's pretty simple. It's an early show. The show starts at 5. Uh, if you don't know when call time should be, and you don't know, how about you fucking ask? You know, and I'm pretty liberal. There's a lot of you can go to Marquez and you're going to be there 5 hours beforehand. There's a lot of these
Yeah.
places. The show starts at 5. Call time should be around 2ish. But I'll say 2:30 for the people who ask me. And if you get there around 3, I'm okay with it. Doors open at 4, and it was like so many of the younger guys, not the Hammerstone who had to fly in from the East Coast, and 7 guys are in the main event, and it's 3:30, and Hammerstone's the only guy there, and then they start rolling in at 4 o'clock, and that's fucking unacceptable. And I had to fucking go off on all of the guys, about it. And I know Shogun, works the pool area and stuff, so like he kind of gets a pass. I'm gonna assume, I didn't ask him, but I know in the past that's the issue that they had, and the other ones were just hey, I was there helping out for setup in the morning. Awesome, that's fantastic. But there was literally 10 guys that showed up an hour after call time, and that's the liberal call time of 2:30. So I'm not having it. It's like these guys are put in good positions. If the guy's driving, when Wise Guy ends up showing up late, the guy's driving from Fresno. You can accept that. When you're rolling out of bed and you can't get there in time, then you show some professionalism, show some pride. You think you want to be there. I run the door at 4 o'clock. If you show up at 4:05, how are we talking about the match and
Right.
discussing what we need to do for the entire show? So plus there was other little things that add up. So it just becomes an annoyance. It's like you don't even have the matches yet, and you're annoyed.
Yeah.
It's just like mind-boggling sometimes.
And when you got to the arena, was that your first time seeing the new ring setup?
Yeah, and the first thing I saw was it was a lot higher.
Yeah.
We had a new ring that we used. Everybody seemed to say it was pretty equivalent to the regular one that we've had since pretty much the day 4. We did use the first one, Legacy's ring, the first show. So after that, we got our own ring, and it's held up really well. And we got this ring from Utah, got a good deal on it, so it made things again make spending more money and making things easier for the younger guys to not have to break down a ring, move the ring, set up the ring. Now there's a ring permanently at the school.
Yeah.
Now we're able to have kids class on Saturday and not lose the income from that. We were able to rent the venue and the ring, the Circle Six, on Saturday night and not have to worry about breaking down the ring at midnight on
Right.
Saturday night, to make things easy. And, You know, I get it. You know, some of the, we just came back from Best of the West. That's not my problem. If it's that difficult for you, if 6 hours of sleep is not enough for you and you're 23 years old because you want to be a wrestler, you know, I was talking with Sin Bodhi yesterday. It was funny. It was like, yeah, some of these guys, it's like, oh my God, they worked 2 shows this weekend. They're exhausted. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, what are you going to do if you actually had to do it for a living? You know, a lot of these guys get booked, you know, 2-3 times a weekend. You know, Hammerstone gets on a flight. He's on the East Coast. He has to come over. You know, he's got to scramble to get a ride home because, you know, Jacob Austin Young was initially going to be at the show. And then he found out that there was a miscommunication and he was needed to wrestle on the New Japan show on, Sunday. So Hammerstone wasn't aware that I also had booked the younger guys because I thought we might have some spots needed, you know. So he was scrambling. Like he hit me up about, hey, you know, I found the flight, you know, to get home because he thought he would have no way. So I have a lot of other things that I got to handle. Right. That this is supposed to be the easy part. Like you think you'd be excited, man. We got a show at Silver Nugget. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, you know, doors I thought opened 30 minutes before the show. It's like, where have you been? When we do a school show, we open them 30 minutes before. Right. A lot of times we have a meet and greet at 3 o'clock. So imagine if you show up at 4 then. It's like, you know, nobody seems to know or remember, but then they're afraid to ask.
Sure. And yeah, that's,
and then it's like, oh crap, I got to run the door. And, you know, I thought NJ was going to be there for commentary and now it's 4:45 and he's not there. And I'm like, what the fuck? Now I got to hurry up and do this. I got to get Rocky, come over. You know, I got more stuff to do because, oh shit, now I got to scramble because I got to do commentary. And then, you know, 10 minutes before the show starts, which was like 2 minutes before the pre-show match, he shows up. It's like, dude, you got to be here. You know, you can't show up 5 minutes before a show. So it's like, yeesh.
Well, and that's, you know.
But God forbid they're not on the show. Forget about it. You know, then it's Crybaby City.
Well, what do you think can get it through to a young wrestler that call times are very important, especially it doesn't reflect just on what they're doing in your company, but if they're going to other places, you know, you have to have certain things like promptness and being able to listen and being able to accept what you're being asked to do. This stuff should be across the boards. Why is it a variation for you as opposed to guys maybe going out to Arizona or Utah or, you know?
Well, I think it all has to do with the freedom I give people. So, of course, when somebody gives you something, now people need, not everybody, but people always take advantage of a situation. You know, It's funny. You know, Peter Avalon in the past, hey, I just want to put over your guys. You know, they were great. And it's like, right, they're on their best behavior when they're over there. And you talk with Dom and, oh, man, you guys are good, blah, 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 blah. You know, like their guys are good. Like Dom's guys are there. You know what I mean? It's like whether they're booked or not. It's like, hey, I might have some spots. I need you, you know, to come down. I'll try to get you the pre-show match. And I was talking to Blair Brody. And then he said Koa and, Devin Reno. So I'm like, yeah, just in case, because we had different ideas. We were going to do the gauntlet match with Nick Xander, but we just didn't feel we had the right grouping of people. And so they would have had spots to fill. And then Mr. Classic showed up, who I like very much, you know, super nice guy, you know. In the future, I could pass him off as Chris Bay, you know what I'm saying? You know, if you turn the head a little bit, And so I ended up making that a tag match. And it's just like, that there was people on our roster that I saw, Saturday at Circle Six, but I didn't see him at our place, on
Sure.
Sunday. And it's like, unfortunately, the only way to get through is with threats. It's like, I'm going to sit down people, even though I yapped at the fucking show to people individually. It's like, I don't give a fuck. If call time is 3 and you roll in at 4, just go home because I'm not going to use you.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm trying to give you the platform, and if you believe that it's not worthy enough for you to be there on time, why would I recommend you for something?
Right. Yeah. It's a sad truth, and it's what's very interesting too is that I think that again the word here is professional wrestler. If that's what you're trying to be, you have to be a professional. Well, if you show up for your job, you know, an hour later than the time you're asked to be there, you're going to get fired and not going to be a professional. So,
I felt I was late and I got there at like 1:45, 1:50, because I wanted to be there at 1
sure.
because I know there's never enough time. So it's like, well, now it's 3 o'clock. I could have talked to 6 people about what we need and what's going on for the show, except nobody's fucking there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, well, why am I in a rush to get there? You're the guys who are performing. I've had to do all the work to get to this moment,
Right.
and now this is supposed to be your moment.
Yep.
And the excuse of working another show the night before means nothing to me. You know,
No, and it shouldn't because, if you think of other live performance styles, art forms, live theater, you're doing live theater every single night consecutively, except for the day off you get in the week. Same with concert touring, bands on the road for 3-4 months on end before they can, take a break.
and they do a sound check 3 hours before the doors are open.
Yeah. Yeah.
In
So,
reality, Def Leppard really doesn't have to be there 7 hours before the show. But because they know it's their show, they want to make sure everything is right. People want to walk in. And the funny thing is, though, it's like everybody wants to get in the ring, feel it out, talk over some things, whatever it is, the pre-show, the pre-door, ritual that they have. But then all of a sudden it's like, hey, everybody, you need to clear out because the doors are going to open. And then everybody's milking the last second because they got there so late. Now they didn't get the time that they wanted. And, that's going to be the excuse for why they had a shitty match.
yeah. Yeah, and it's easier to come up with excuses, relying on that than to take the responsibility. So it's a very interesting thing. But we did have a show, you know, that I think delivered on what you've been building up to.
Well,
Uh,
in most situations, there was a few non-bangers on the show for sure. And maybe if you're around more, and maybe if, I'm not going to blame somebody who's trained and gets to work on a casino show to them getting there late, but it's everything. How much effort and work were you putting in? Oh, well, I didn't get enough sleep. Maybe you were too tired. Well, then maybe, after that show that ended at 10 or 11 o'clock, you drove home. When I hear you got home at 7:30 in the morning on a 5-hour ride, that means you didn't leave till 2:30.
yeah,
Well, you have a show the next day, so you think you'd either sleep there and then drive, or you would get home as early as you could and be home by 3 or 4, so you can get a solid 7-8 hours of sleep. be well rested, and to come back, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you're going to work another show on Friday and ours is a Saturday, for example, and every time you work a Friday show, you're lazy and complacent and tired on Saturday, how about I just don't book you in the future? Makes things
Yeah.
easier for everybody. You can get your rest. You can sleep all day.
Well, the show opened up with the Sky High and Bodie versus Brett the Threat and the Suavecitos. Let me ask you, how much did you pay to have Danny's nose messed up, and was it worth it?
Actually, I have to put a bonus out there because I didn't pay. So, I guess young Bodie's going to have to get a bonus for a job well done.
And are you trying to compete with AEW and just draw color in every first match now? Is that what's going on?
Well, I was going to see if they wanted to set the record for the most dives in an opening match spot, but, they were pretty close.
When you look at how that match played out, and being that it was the opener after the pre-show match, do you think that match got the fans into it? Did it live up to the expectations of what was built up for those six guys?
I think the match delivered in terms of the crowd being excited and into it. I don't think the match was very good. Uh, it, it, you know, if you didn't see the match and you went backstage after the match, you could see that they weren't very jumpity and happy about the performance. Danny wasn't telling me what a banger it was. It
Sure.
was like, there was a lot of hiccups. And these are guys who've had a lot of experience working together. So, that shouldn't be one of the matches that doesn't deliver in the ring. Fortunately, personality wise, people love Bodie and people love Sky High and people hate the Suavecitos and they hate Brett the Threat. So they're definitely engaged in what's happening. And again, a lot of the stuff that doesn't go right, I see it, doesn't make me happy, but it isn't like it's so easy to see that all the fans are taken away from the match because there was all these big fuck ups. No, it's little stuff, it's placement, it's, seems like some miscommunication and confusion on what should be happening at that time.
Right.
So it ends up coming across as it was okay, but again, I know they're capable of a better match and they didn't reach that level. And that's all you can really say. It's like, younger guys always think they're going to have the best match on the show and it's how they react when they don't. And it's like, thank God you're aware that you didn't have a great match because
Sure.
sometimes that's my issue with Danny and the Suavecitos, where it's like, dude, you better look back at the match.
Yeah.
You're proud of this effort, and it wasn't that great, so calm down. But there are also going to be times you're going to have a really good match, but you're also going to have a really shitty match, and you can't get too high and you can't get too low. That's what happens when you use younger guys. You
Yeah.
know, I've stated it before. I've had Brian Cage, Kenny King, Max Dupree, whatever, in matches together that were the shits. It's going to happen with guys with 10, 15 years experience. So if you think guys that have been in this for 2 or 3 years are going to go out there and everything's always going to be magical, well, that's not realistic.
When you look at another match, that the second match on the show, I believe it was Ricky Tenacious and Alice Blair versus Chase Bell and Gypsy Mac. Um, when you were putting together, trying to put together, we talked about it a little bit last week, that you'd have a mixed tag. How difficult was it to get together. And do you think that that late pairing actually ended up working for the match?
Again, another match that was very sloppy. Definitely, the females, especially in that match, are less experienced. They need work. They need training. You got to be around, you
Yeah.
know. And Ricky and Chase are fine, uh, but again, there was a lot of sloppiness in there, and those when you have that kind of a matchup, and it's that future shock. You're on the big stage, man. You better step it up, because those expectations are a lot higher. And
Right.
if you don't produce on that big show, well, there's a good chance you probably won't be on the next big show. I pride myself on having the best talent possible there. And more spaces opened up because you had a 6-man tag to open the show. You had a 4-person intergender. You had a main event that had 7 people in it. You had a 5-way scramble. So on a normal show, you're not having a 6-man, a 5-man, and a 7-man.
Right.
So those 3 matches with 18 people are now 6 matches, maybe 7 matches, because maybe you only need 18 to 20 people. You know,
Yeah.
let's say I'm going to throw in a tag match. That's 4. I'm going to throw in a scramble. That's 4 or 5. We'll just say 5. That's already 9 in 2 matches. Well, there's going to be 5 singles matches. So that's 19. And if we go, so we're going to have 21, 22 people on a show. Well, we had 18 on 3. So that means we had, a bunch more going on. So there might have been 28, 30 people on the show. So 8 of them may not have made that show, unless we're doing the Rumble show at Against All Odds, where, of course, we're going to have 30 people in the Rumble.
Right.
But, if you look at the anniversary show, there was 8 matches.
Right.
Here there was only 7 matches. The time flowed fantastic. It was done within 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And if we can do anything in that 215, 220 range, I'm ecstatic. 230 I can live with, but 210, it's great. The fans are in, the fans are out. Nothing overstayed its welcome. No match scheduled for 8 minutes when 17. It was like people. Me being negative is one thing, and there's every reason for it, but there were a lot of positives that came out of the show, which is how it usually is. I just think there was more negatives on this show than there has been in a major show we've done in a while.
Sure. Nick Xander and Clutch, this was their second match. Did it? Do you think it was better than their first one, or do you think that it just needed a little something more?
Again, I only saw bits and pieces of it. I actually went back yesterday and kind of looked at more, but I was looking for certain things to see how it worked out, the finish, things like that. You
Sure.
know, that's a match that was telling a story.
Right.
And, I think it told the story that it needed to tell. I think the placement of Nick Bugatti, he had actually presented that idea to me, and I liked it, and I think it worked well. The one thing that looked a little weird to me when I look back at it is like, okay, here's this dude, like it's 100 degrees out. He's got this hood. He's covered up. Like, I would think as a fan, I'd be looking over like, that guy's got to be doing something. But it didn't seem like the fans thought it. And then, and the thing was, at the end, there was a decent amount of people. Not everybody, recognized the guy who's been with us for a very long time, but hasn't been. But it's only been like a year, so it just shows you there's a lot of turnover, in the fan base.
Yeah.
That, it's Vegas. People move in, people move out. a lot of the regulars that were there, they know Bugatti and they saw it, and it kind of plays into Nick Xander calling out Nick Bugatti, who wasn't even around 7 months ago, 8 months ago.
Right.
And you like to say in wrestling, be careful what you wish for. And Nick Xander wished for Nick Bugatti, and he got him served. And Nick Bugatti actually served him up on the platter for clutch.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great story moment. Nice to see Nick getting back into the fold. I know that he's been, working towards it and thinking
You,
about it.
yeah, Xander got a huge gash on his leg that I don't know how it happened. I guess it happened in a situation in the match, but like
Yeah.
when I heard it was like, "Hey, we got a first aid kit," Nick's got a cut on his shin. It's like, well, that was a little more than a cut. You know what I mean? It's like I got a cut on my finger. That's they were saying you could see bone, and
Yeah,
I'm not talking about funny bone.
yeah, you could literally if it was Thanksgiving, you could stuff it with dressing. It was that open, and it was deep. But it was just one of those like kind of weird, like, wow, man, that's just strange how that particular cut happened. But man, again, it shows a little bit of heart, shows a little bit of toughness, that he was able to get through the match with that brutal of a gash, and hopefully,
Yeah, after the fact, Clutch was like, "Man, he's a tough dude." Like he didn't even complain about it. Like he didn't roll out of the ring. Like Clutch was not aware of it till after the match was over. That it was a pretty deep cut.
and I think didn't their last match. I thought Sander had something happen with like shoulders or ribs or something like that. So he's
Yeah. Clutch roughed him up a little bit.
yeah he's been showing his
Maybe a little rusty. You know what I'm saying?
uh, we got to get Clutch glasses. Maybe that's it. Maybe he's starting to lose the eyesight in the old age.
Well, yeah, and plus he didn't, get a little winded, and he could tag in Sugar Brown. You know what I'm saying? Like he had to do it all himself.
I don't know. I swear I did see one moment that he kind of turned around to make the tag and no one was in the corner. So I think it was still on his
Actually,
mind.
he was probably standing by the merch area because I actually did see him in the audience. I was wondering. I'm like, I wonder if he's going to get involved.
Yeah, it was good to see Sugar around, but I asked him at 52 if he's too old right now, and so we'll see, man. Maybe he'll come around. Maybe he's gotten that rest and is itching for a little bit more.
Well, usually the telltale sign is, there's certain guys that you just they've been around forever and then they just stop coming by and they're done. You
Yeah,
know, there's got to be some inkling of coming back, and without knowing, obviously, my personal opinion is, I saw him AEW weekend, I saw him at the anniversary, and I wouldn't call it sniffing around because I say, hey, bro, ba 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 ba, and it's like, and he smiles and, he gives you that Sugar Brown smile, you know what I mean? And it's like,
right.
but he keeps it close to the vest. But you got to believe there's some desire. It's kind of like even Tyshawn Prince, man, hit him up. He sees some stuff. He's like, oh, I was thinking of coming by. And it's like, he has, people don't know. He's been by a few different times over the years. When we did the Hall of Fame, he actually did wrestle in the Battle Royal, the Nick Bockwinkel Battle Royal a few years ago. For people who don't know, he got really fucked up. He was doing those mocap videos that a lot of our guys do. Lance Hoyt does it, Kenny King, TJP, Chris Bay, Trey Miguel. They all go up to like San Francisco like once a month and they film stuff that gets used for the video games. And it's
Yeah,
a great supplement for the income. Sean Davari did it. That's how like all these guys that didn't know who knew Tyshawn. I'm like, oh yeah, I know Tyshawn. It's like, how do you know him? And they'd be like, oh, the mocap. And I guess they did some spot, and Tyshawn was supposed to be on the top going into the ring, and somehow it fucked up, and he went out of the ring, and he hit his head, and he got really badly concussed.
Ooh.
And, that took him out of action for a couple of years. And, life goes on. He does the things, and, it took him a long time to, like, step back in the ring because he really got fucked up.
Yeah. And a shout out to Navajo Warrior, who is, one of those guys who gets the guys the opportunity for doing.
Yeah, Navajo puts a lot of those guys in place.
Yeah. And speaking of some guys that, coming in and doing things, man, Brandon Gatson. Now we're starting to talk. That No Limit Scramble with Jordan Oasis, Wise Guy, Cameron Gates, Eli Everfly was just a wonderful, just potpourri of, a little bit of everything just sprinkled into one match. And that was, would you ever do what Eli Everfly does?
Me, no.
Because
I haven't even climbed the ladder to the balcony to just climb the ladder to the balcony to make sure the hard cam shot looks good.
Yeah, it's unbelievable when he does his.
Well, I kind of egged him on, because I saw him and I was like, hey, I know you like to jump off things, and I was telling him about how Vintage Dragon back in the day climbed to the top of the trussing by the stage area, and how Funny Bone jumped off that, and that was all I said. And then all of a sudden they started fighting to the front door area where that balcony is, and I didn't even see him. Like, he slid by me because I was by the front entrance because I was by the table for the door. Right. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh shit, there's Eli Everfly. I didn't even see him get over there. I thought he was still in the ring, and he ended up injuring his ankle a little bit, but he was good. He needs to go to every venue and make sure he jumps off the top, the highest point.
Yeah, it's just something else, and it's fun to watch from the perspective of looking out towards the fans and seeing that anticipation, because it was almost like the whole audience did what you did. No one saw him get to that area, but people saw him when he was on that ascent, on that climb, and you could literally hear people in the audience going, oh shit, oh shit. And then when he took off, it was just like the place went up. It was great. Cameron Gates, man, whoa, what did you think about throwing him in there? I thought that was thought he did some pretty good work.
Well, I was looking for, we had announced the 4 guys. I was looking for a 5th guy. And, I hit up Cartwheel. I hit up, numerous guys that I thought, might work, in that match, And then Matt Vandegrift and Jay Vidal, I know they go around the West Coast. So I'm like, hey, man, I'm looking for, a newer guy, to maybe debut. And they had mentioned Kodo Hero, who they liked a lot. He was booked, and I probably hit up 4 or 5 guys. And Cameron Gates was, another guy that Jay Vidal highly recommended. But I didn't know him. I knew of him. Santino guy. Usually you're not going to go wrong by getting a guy from Santino. I hit up Lucas Riley. He was booked. And it was like, I was literally down to 2 guys. One was local, who we've used numerous times, and now he's back kind of in it, Eli Quick, and Cameron Gates, because I saw Eli Quick. He ended up working the Circle 6 show. And if Cameron Gates wasn't able to do it, I was going to hit up Eli Quick for the match. Cameron Gates Which again, knowing that he's working a lot more, Eli Quick, I've always had him in good positions. He's worked good guys even when he first started. I remember he worked a tournament match with Ryan Taylor back in the day at the Silverton. So, he'd be a good guy to get back in the mix. But Cameron Gates, he actually just sent me a message today. Hey, had a great time. The locker room was great. Anytime you need me, hit me up. So, looks like him and Jordan Oasis might have some unfinished business. I guess Cameron Gates stole the backpack of the Unabomber Jordan Oasis, and all hell kind of broke loose.
I was just dying because it's only in professional wrestling that instead of your focus being on winning the match and becoming the number one contender for a title, it was steal a bag and, oh my God, I have to get my backpack back. That was his goal for the rest of the match.
I don't know what was in there, but maybe Oasis held some incriminating photos of himself that he didn't want leaked. I don't know.
There's something in there, and we'll find out at some point. But
at some point,
it was interesting to say the least to see. Wait a minute, is this now? What's going on? They're fighting over a bag. What's up?
And I definitely enjoyed the dynamic of it.
Yeah.
Wise Guy is an unsung hero, man. Here's a guy who comes in every once in a while. He'll come in from out of state, always looking to get on an FSW show. And just sometimes there's just so many guys and trying to get the students on. But Wise Guy, a lot of people don't realize he is a tremendous talent, and I would love to be able to utilize him, on a full-time basis. I talk about Eli and Gatson a lot, and I don't use them as often as I'd like. Wise Guy is far less used who should be used. Because some of these younger cats who think they're deserving and stuff, Wise Guy would wipe the mat with them, and it's like, show some respect to people, be aware of your surroundings and what you're actually being involved in. And maybe, a lot of those guys, if they weren't part of FSW's training thing and things like that, and we just had to pick and choose guys that we would want to run a show with, and you're going to go with the best guys, they would be nowhere near it. They may be good and young and up and coming, but they're still not as good as a guy like Wise Guy who's been doing it for 10 years. Phenomenal shape. Yeah. The guy can work. He's got one of the best drop kicks I've ever seen. And it's like a tremendous talent. And having that five-way, a guy like Cameron Gates, you hope was like, hey, wow, that's cool. I got to work with Eli, Gatson, those guys have been doing it for a very long time and doing it at a high level. So,
yeah.
And then a guy like Oasis, right. I know he's had a good run in Washington, and, he's getting his feet wet here in FSW and working with guys like Vandegrift and Damian Drake and Jay Vidal, but working with guys who, 10, 12, 15 years in some cases with Gatson and stuff. We used him in 2009 and he'd already been around. So, and it's like he's in the best shape of his life. So it's crazy. I was joking about it because yesterday at the school, a guy had messaged me about coming by. And he's like, hey, let me know if it's okay. And I'm thinking to myself, why the fuck would it not be okay? You want to come sign up like I'm not going to want you to sign up. And he put his name. His name was Brandon. And, didn't think nothing of it. So he comes in. I look at him. And then it's like, oh, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, wait a second. It was this guy who trained with us and had matches 10 years ago.
Wow.
Cold-hearted Corey Phillips. And he had some life issues that really wrecked him and kind of disappeared. and we had never seen or heard from him again. And I'm
Wow.
like, so I guess he did something on the website. So he was under the impression I knew it was him. So that's why he was asking if it was okay. And I'm like, well, I didn't get anything from the website. It's like, I didn't see it. Sometimes if I get anything, it's just if you make an appointment. Like, I think he may have sent his resume or something that I've never gotten yet. And it was like, holy fuck. And it was like, I remember, like, he wrestled, I think he teamed up. It was Kenny King and Rush against him and Gregory Sharp.
Wow.
And I remember the match specifically because it was at Boulder Highway. Okay. And during the match, I thought Kenny King got pissed off at Sharp. And they were on the outside. And I swear to God, I thought Kenny King was fucking smashing him. And it was just Kenny King being a professional. But after the match, Kenny turned on Rush. So I always remember that match. And I remember Corey Phillips. He was this young kid. I didn't know. I found out yesterday because I'm like, how old are you now? And he said 33. It was 2012.
Wow.
So he was this 23-year-old kid. He had trained with Legacy. So he was good enough. He worked some, Boulder Silver Nugget shows. And he was part of the mix. And then, he just fell off. And it was like, it was crazy, that he showed up yesterday. And it's like, you never know. It's like he's got the itch. He saw some stuff, and, hopefully everything's all good. He's supposed to start back and train today. So I messaged Cody about it yesterday. I'm like, you'll never believe who came by. And he was like, oh, I was worried about him. I'm glad to hear, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, you probably will see him Thursday at training.
I like to imagine in those scenarios, it was during class. He went out to get an ice pack for a bump he just took. And now he's just coming back from getting that ice pack and, picking right back up to where he left off. So that's a pretty cool story. 10 years, think about it, 10 years, man. Wow.
Yeah.
And
And obviously, he had to straighten out his life. I didn't get into deep conversations with him on how long it's been and all this other stuff, but I will down the line. But hopefully we have a good redemption story that the wrestling FSW has brought him back, and hopefully second time around's better than the first.
or you have another lead in for the character, and that is the first time around wrecked him so bad that there's no other place to go because FSW put him on the street.
It could be. You never know.
You mentioned two guys there, Cutthroat Cody and Greg Sharp. Greg was supposed to defend Nevada State title against Damian Drake, but dastardly enough, he took out Damian Drake, where there happened to be a camera around filming Damian Drake in Damian's private life or something, I guess. But either way, Damian Drake couldn't make it to the ring, so Cutthroat Cody stepped in and actually got a win by disqualification against Greg Sharp. Greg also wrestled Circle 6 the night before. He wrestled Alan Angels. Right now, is there another guy in the company that you feel is as valuable as Greg Sharp's been within the past year?
Again, he's definitely a guy that should be a top contender for the Wrestler of the Year. Who would have thought, Hyper Streak would disappear? He started, with, obviously it was still 2021, pretty sure. But, he beat the Wrestler of the Year of 2021 in Jay Vidal, and they had one of the biggest feuds of the year. And him and Remy Marcel. And, people are gunning for him. He got to wrestle Davey Richards. And, you know, he's been involved in some marquee matchups. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, what's the future in store for him? Obviously, he's got Damian Drake. You know, Cody is still on the horizon. You know, and you know, as I said, on September 4th, Chris Bay makes his return. You know, there is one title Chris Bay has never won. He was actually in the finals for the Nevada State Championship that Graves was victorious in.
Right.
So, you know, it's going to be very interesting, and Gregory Sharp's going to be very busy. Unless he loses the title, then he won't be as busy. But there's, you know, Davey Richards is looking for that rematch. You know what I mean? It's like between Cody and Damian Drake and Davey Richards, and you know, there's a lot of other name guys that we're, you know, talking with about, you know, as we talk, an Eli Everfly. You never know. A Brandon Gatson. There's guys, you know, Gatson and Sharp have history back in the day. You know, they main evented for the No Limits title at the Silverton when the following was rebuilt. And what about Jacob Austin Young? You know, there's these guys that are in the mix. You know, and we're extremely happy with what we got going on. You know, of course, there's Brett the Threat, who is looking to take on 13 guys at one time. Now I see he's calling out Danny Limelight because there was a conversation. Like, dude, you know, I know you're eager, but, you know, it's the old Scott Steiner thing. You're calling out guys that you're not even, like, even in the mix of talking about matches with. You know, it's like Blair Brody, yeah, definitely the possibility on September 4th. But how about you get through the guys in front of you? Like, he's already like got bypassed 7 guys, and now Limelight's the new guy on the mix. And the week before was about, well, why is Damian Drake #1 contender? Because I had beaten him in a match at a different company. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
you know, calm the fuck down, you know, and you know, I know you've had great success, but you know, and again, when you say earlier, you were like, oh, you know, what are you going to be able to do? You know, how to get these guys to you can't. You know,
Sure.
that's why Brett and the Suavecitos are great together, because they're all delusional. And again, I'll say Ricky's less delusional than the rest of them, but it's kind of like the Bonner and Baroni thing. You don't realize how crazy Bonner is because he was hanging around with Baroni.
Right.
When he wasn't around, then you realized it. When they hung out together, you're like, yeah, you know, Bonner, you know. And then it's like, oh, wait, he's a crazy motherfucker too. You know? So just because Ricky's less than Danny doesn't mean he's higher than everybody else in the locker room when it comes to that attitude type of
Sure.
thing. You know what I mean? And it's just trying to, you know, there's a fine line between, you know, being a cocky motherfucker and being a confident motherfucker. You
Right.
know, in this business to succeed, you have to be confident, but
Right.
you also have to be aware of your strengths and weaknesses. And none of those guys only have strengths. They have a lot of weaknesses too that they have to
Right.
work on. And the question becomes, do they realize this, and do they take that under consideration? And even though they're yapping and talking shit and stuff, are they working to make themselves the complete package?
Sure.
Because, you know, when you're young and, you know, when you're 23, 25, I'm pretty sure I figured I knew everything also. You know, in most cases I did, but I'm a special breed. You know what I mean? It's like my kid thinks he knows everything, but he doesn't. Me, on the other hand, you know, as I said, I'm special. You know, I was able to navigate through the world and be right most of the time. You know, it's almost a sin, you know, to be that right. But it happens. You know, there's a few of us that are like that. But those guys, they got to understand that, you know, you're going to have nights like you did on Sunday. where things didn't go right, things you wanted to do, whatever it was. And again, the key is always bouncing back. You
Yeah.
know, the best guys are going to bounce back, and you're going to make you forget all about the last thing, because that's great. You know, people will remember a lot more of your fuck ups than the stuff you did well, because you're trained to be a wrestler, and the majority of stuff the average fan thinks, oh, you know, well, he's practiced that a million times. That it's not that difficult for him. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's like, you know, when you watch a 15-year-old kid do a 450 that he almost never fucking lands wrong, you know, it makes it seem like, oh, well, you know, if you learn how to do it, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not simple, and you're going to fuck it up.
Yeah.
So when you do it well all the time, it's expected. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Well, yeah, that's such a true, a true thing, and that's what you're actually selling, right? That's why the audience is coming back, is because you're doing something on a constant basis that varies from show to show. If you did the exact same thing over and over and just play your greatest hits, you're going to lose people. But um, it's incredible to see. And I think Hammerstone's one of those guys who we see that, no matter what he does so well that he could even fuck up and you might not know he's fucked something up. With that, the main event of Hammerstone and TBD versus Lights Camera Faction, um, was there anything in there that you particularly thought stood out to you?
As I say, during the show, there's a lot of running around. So even though the matches are going on, so when I'm not doing commentary, it's a lot harder to, you know, pay attention to everything, you know, that's going on. Like I
Yeah,
heard the mat slam when Braxton got smashed and pinned. Now, I didn't see the Nightmare Pendulum. I had to ask what the finish was, and they're like, "Oh, Nightmare Pendulum." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." You know, I would want to see that, because it's a little different with Braxton compared to Ice, because Braxton being very tall and lanky. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
it was pretty
So
cool. It was pretty
so
cool.
you got that there. You know, the situation, you know, Hammerstone, even though he didn't get pinned, that was his first loss in a very long time. It was a count out, but, you know, it still counts. Uh, you know, the faction once again made claim for a title match, especially in the tag division.
Yeah,
You know, even Ice Williams, he was the lone survivor, you
yeah,
know, match that had the heavyweight champion. That should put him, you know, back in the mix of who
yeah,
you're looking at. You know, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not the next show, but he definitely didn't lose, you know, the opportunity, even though he did get pinned by Hammerstone at the anniversary show.
right,
And Braxton has the case, which he could use at any time.
right.
And we've seen it happen in the past. You know, it's possible that he hands it on down to a member and says, "We're cashing in," you know, and he could go after Nevada State. He could go after the No Limits.
Yeah,
You know, I would dread the day if the faction had every belt in the company, but it's definitely a possibility. They solidified themselves. They won the biggest match at Survival of the Fittest.
yeah,
They beat the two champions. You know, both tag champs got pinned in the match,
yeah,
regardless of how it was done. You know, chicanery, trickery, whatever.
yeah,
Bottom line is, it'll go in the record books when you go to that, what is it, cagematch.net or whatever it's called, and They give you the results. It isn't Hero Lou was pinned because somebody got hit with a low blow and they cheated to get the victory. No, it's Hero Lou was eliminated by Lights Camera Faction.
Right.
And 3 months from now, that's all people are going to remember.
Yeah. It's the way that they are able to utilize their smarts to get the advantage in matches. It really has been something that has been a pleasure to watch. One of the
I
good,
guess you can't call it dumb luck anymore.
right, right. Now it's a solidified mechanism of taking advantage of the opportunities in front of them, I guess is the best way to put it.
Well,
But what,
and again, now the confidence level is up.
right,
Ice Williams wrestles Hammerstone. He doesn't win, and most people don't expect him to, but he almost did. And people who aren't the biggest Ice Williams fans of his personality, of his character, still have to give him tons of credit for the effort that he put in that match. And he almost beat one of the most dominant champions in FSW history.
yeah,
The tag team pinned the other wrestlers that are the tag team champions.
yeah,
And the last time they wrestled, they were actually victorious. Again, the champs used their belts because the other guys brought them in. So they're definitely still the number one contenders for the tag team titles.
yeah.
So, regardless of how things came about,
Yeah.
they are in the mix.
Yeah, it's fun to watch right now to see what they're doing. Um, Also, before we talk about the last match, September 4th, like you mentioned, Chris Bay is going to be back. We're also going to have Viva Van, I believe, there as well. What is going on the 4th? Where is it? When is it? So that fans can start
Well,
making
it's at the FSW Arena, Sunday, September 4th. We just got notice. I didn't pay attention, but I guess All Out is running at 5 p.m. So instead of us doing a 5 p.m. show, we're going to do a matinee show.
Nice.
We're going to do Sunday at 2 p.m. That way the show's over by 4. People can be home, relax, still have plenty of time. We're also working on a viewing party of All Out. So after the show, you don't want to pay, you could stick around and watch it on the 4 monitors in the arena. We got the big screen, we got the 2 on the side, we got the one by the commentary table, and maybe we'll hook up a couple of more monitors in the ring per se, and maybe it's included in the ticket price.
Sure.
Maybe you could watch it and we'll put seats in the ring for $10 or something like that. So obviously we have to figure it out quickly because the show's in less than 2 weeks, but we're going to get it out there, and we got to contact about buying the pay-per-view, obviously,
Right.
So, but I think that's what we're going to do. We're doing the matinee show at 2, run it till about 4, and then we can start with the pre-show. You can stay, in the past, we've done it with Bay and Cross to where we had the viewing parties. Well, now we're going to have a wrestling show into the wrestling show.
Yeah.
And I know the fans, because they're the ones who told me, I posted the thing about the 5 o'clock, and a few people say, hey, All Out, which they aren't telling me that unless they planned on watching it.
Right.
So why would I want to stop anybody from coming to a show when all I got to do is move the time?
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a fun little opportunity for anyone who is in town, wants to check it out. Go ahead. Also, if you're not in town and you want to watch a little wrestling before All Out, you can catch the show on the 4th on the FSW network for $6.99 a month. You get that show and all the other programs that FSW has done throughout the years, and a good little way to catch some wrestling before wrestling if you want to make a full day out of it on Sunday the 4th. Finally, as we get into wrapping up here, Matt Vandergriff retained the No Limits Championship against Jay Vidal. So that means Jay Vidal's FSW career is no more. Joe, what does it mean to you to have had the experiences with Jay, and can you believe that quiet kid who walked into FSW is this superstar in the making right now?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like here was a kid. He came in. Hey, I've trained a few years with Gangrel, so he got connected to FSW from Gangrel into Sin Bodhi. You know,
Yeah,
and we saw some potential early. I remember really liking what I saw from him, other than his terrible name that we talked. He was the EDM kid, Jaden Ridden or something like that. And it was like, you know what? I'm going to give this guy an opportunity. And he wrestled, I'm pretty sure it was Douglas James, who at that time was the No Limits champion.
yeah,
And we were doing a beers and body slams downtown. And it was a really, really good match. It was like, wow, this kid, has definitely got something. And then the pandemic hit. And he let me know, hey, I got family in Florida. Things are tight out here. I'm moving back. And he was a guy who had a few years in, but because he was a newer student and Sin was kind of doing his thing with that, he was paying, maybe a little more than he should for a guy at his experience level. He
sure.
was paying with a guy who's relatively new. So between that, not having a job, whatever it was time to go back. But I saw that potential in him, and I would always touch base. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? You coming back? And then at one point, as things were starting to ease, they were still there because we ended up doing the empty arenas and the other shows and stuff. He said, hey, I'm going to come back to Vegas. I'm like, hey, I'm going to give you a break. This is what I'm going to do for the dues. We want you here. You have experience. You're better than a lot of guys already. So you shouldn't be paying more than those guys that you're better than. So we got him back in the mix. And at that point, we started using one of the guys from Arizona, Parada, and put them in a tag. And immediately, we were billing them as a heel tag team, and the crowd really responded to them very quickly.
Yeah,
And it got to the point where they defeated the RMB, who were former tag team champions multiple times. That was a big upset victory,
right.
and they were starting to get a lot of momentum. And then Parada upped and quit. He decided, he didn't want to wrestle anymore. He had, life issues, and it took him out of there. And it forced us to put the newly named Jay Vidal, which, he had been that name for a while since, I created the name The Bad Bitches, which fit them well, and they were beloved. And Jay Vidal stepped into the singles ranks, and the crowd loved him. And the momentum just continued to where now he was putting on true bangers with, Matt Vandergriff and Eli Everfly and whoever he stepped in the ring with, you would expect probably one of the best matches on the show.
Yeah,
So, and at that time when he first came back, he was, as you said, this skinny kid, not much definition. And as the process grew and he grew as a wrestler, you know, he became the total package. He always comes up to me, hey, check out these guns. Even the other day, he was like, yeah, I was standing across from Wise Guy and I thought I was looking in a mirror, you know, and no offense, but Wise Guy is a little bigger on that end. But Jay Vidal got himself, in massively great shape.
Yeah.
and he has put himself in a position. Impact came to town. They chose to use him. They chose to use him again because they liked him. They even had him involved in backstage segments and doing some things. So obviously, at his age, he's ripe for the picking. We talk about Vandergriff and we talk about Jay Vidal. They've been getting those opportunities, but Jay Vidal has been getting a little more of them. Matt was doing the AAA with Damian Drake, but then when he moved away, that kind of dried up because Conan ain't flying people from Orlando, to work their shows in Tijuana. So, but now Matt Vandergriff, he's back in Vegas full time, and Jay Vidal has decided to spread his wings a little bit. So, have we seen the end of Jay Vidal? Possibly. We hope not. He's the one who chose to make that stipulation. So, he feels he's on to bigger and better things. And we wish him nothing but the best. He's extremely talented. In most cases, he's extremely humble. He's always been super good with me. I got nothing but the utmost respect. And it has nothing to do with the fact that we're both Puerto Ricanos and, got a little soft spot for those fellow guys.
Well, I think that outside of the fact that the match was a wonderful match, and there was some really nice stuff that they did, and that's hard to do a lot of times too when you've wrestled each other consecutively for 4 shows, for a title, and had outcomes of the title going back and forth. So it was a wonderful final act for this feud, for Jay in FSW as well. Uh, but as you said, for now, the door's probably, got that crack open where he can kick it back open if he need it. But I know the fans gave him a wonderful ovation, and I think that everyone is thankful for what Jay has put into the company, and I think everyone's excited to see what this opportunity leads for him for next, to see where he goes in his career. So just really nice to have had that time to see him shine on the stage that you gave him.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like, when there's times people get opportunities, sometimes they fall on their face, sometimes, it might be a little too much for them. But Jay Vidal, when I said, hey, we're going to give you this run, 'cause for people who may not have heard before, Chris Bay, nobody knew other than me, Chris Bay, and I guess the referee, that Jay Vidal was going to win the No Limits title on New Year's Eve night. And, when you see the emotion of Jay Vidal, man, that was 100% real. He
Yeah.
did not know he was winning. And then all of a sudden it was like, what the fuck? And, it was a tribute to when Chris Bay won the tag title that way, when I guess Remy or Jack didn't kick out, and he got to be the tag champion and a champion in FSW for the first time. It's a
Yeah.
big deal. First time being the champion. So a lot of times people like to look at, and sometimes even I do. It's like, oh, well, you didn't win the belt. You were given the belt, and no, you weren't given the belt. Okay, you earned the belt.
Yeah.
You got put in that position because I felt my company, my belt. I put it on who I feel is going to represent us the best at that particular time. Because if it was, oh, who's the best guy? Okay, well, then everybody's going to hold the belt till somebody better comes along. You're trying to tell stories. But you're trying to always make sure that a capable person is going to win the belt. It has
Yeah.
to be believable. And Matt Vandergriff winning it from Jay Vidal is believable. Chris Bay winning it from Ice Williams was more than believable. Ice Williams winning it from Remy Marcel was believable. Damian Drake winning it was believable. And that's how it's been all along. Eli Everfly winning it would be believable. Gatson's a former No Limits champion. Cody, Funny Bone, Jacob Austin Young, all those guys are still kind of rolling around, 5, 10, 15 years later, still at the top of their game. So winning a championship in FSW, I don't take lightly in any way. People are like, oh, yeah, what about him? And like, if I don't think they're ready, I don't think they're ready. People have come along. I remember, Remy was pushing for Jack Manley back in the day for the No Limits Championship. And it was kind of like, hey, you know what? We got to build him. We got to get him when it's ready and it's right. And I believe he ended up winning it in like a 30-minute Ironman match or something. But it was the right time. There's a lot of guys who are like, oh, especially in the tag division, because sometimes they kind of come together, even like Remy and Jack or the 1%, or these guys, like, you want to build on the momentum. And it's like, okay, these guys are getting really good. And the thing is, 3 months after they won the title, they're way better than they won when they won the title. And that's also part of the process of keeping the title on somebody. Like, okay, if you're a work in progress and we feel you're kind of ready, and then you don't excel anymore and you kind of stale or stay where you're at, well, then we realize, hey, it's time for a change.
Right.
And, making somebody a champion in FSW is a process that is not easy. It's like there's a lot of time and effort in my fucking brain to where, again, it's like, hey, who's the guy after Hammerstone? And that's the $1 million question. Who's the guy to beat Hammerstone for the championship? And, there's a few on the radar. I was talking with Hammerstone and, who he saw as potential guys. And, he's like me, man. He's old school and wants respect and sees the guys who put in the work and guys who really want it. There's guys who do really well, but they probably could do better. And that's the complacency, or they're content with where they're at. And as I said, if you look at all our champions who've gone on to other things, it was because they weren't content at where they're at. They weren't happy. Sometimes it's hard for them to even, say they had a really good match, because again, they're harping on what didn't go right, what went wrong, what they should have did here. It's kind of like, the armchair booking. I sit there and I'm thinking, oh man, if I was thinking, I would have did this, this, and this. You know what I mean? And it's like, unfortunately, you can't do the rewind and, redo it. So, you got to live with where you're at. So you're going to always try to make sure that the best decision is the one that everyone sees.
Yeah. I think that's
also want to, talk about, the feed. A lot of people get upset, and I totally understand. The thing is, it's kind of beyond our control. The last show at the Silver Nugget, the last show at the school, it was the internet connection. It's the same internet. People want to be like, oh, you got shitty internet. We had Circle 6 there, and they did the live feed. And I'm like, hey, guys, how's the connection? Oh, the connection's great. It's 20 megabytes. The problem is it's 20 megabytes, but sometimes when Cox puts it out, issues happen, and it drops to a level where we have frame drops and it freezes. And unfortunately, our last 2 shows, that happened. It happened at the Silver Nugget, where we had done a few shows, the one with Sammy, and we did the Mecca, and the feeds were great.
Yeah.
But when people are paying money, any freeze up is an issue. And I know at the last show, which was I believe the anniversary show, they cut the feed, and people had to pay $15 for a live pay per view that they had to watch the next day. And again, that's unacceptable to me.
Yeah.
Or the network. The fact of the matter is, people are paying $7 a month. It reminds me of like the Nitro Grill. You're only going there so many times to look at Hacksaw Jim Duggan's 2x4. You're going there for the atmosphere, for the thing. The network, you're going there. You've already seen the cross matches and Bay and Lacey. The people who keep paying for it are the ones who are paying for it because it's $7 and they get to watch one or two or sometimes three live events.
Right.
That breaks down to $2-3 a piece. So $7 is not a lot for them. They're not doing it because, oh, okay, I want to go catch up on Survival of the Fittest 2015. No, they want to watch the stuff. The people who came to watch Survival of the Fittest live in 30 days when we put it up on the network, now we'll rewatch it, but they weren't paying for it because they were there. And it's like for $7, you still want to keep people happy. And we've had people, of course, unsubscribe or, we've tried to offer things, but the network has done very well. And I think the reason why it's sustained for almost 2 years, and the only reason it's sustained, is because of the fact that we do the live events.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure no matter what, like, I was on the phone with Cox the day after trying to figure out how things are with the upgrades. And it's like, the pricing is so much higher compared to a residential home. Like, my speed in my house is 10 times what it is at my business at FSW. Yet the fact of the matter is I'm paying like $100 more a month for much slower speed. And the thing is, it's a business, but we don't have built-in employees that we need 20 feeds for the internet. It's not like now, because back in the day you had to have cable. Didn't matter that you didn't watch shit.
Right.
With Cox, they haven't expanded to that. Well, here's a package that's exclusively for uploading because we don't really need it to download anything. We don't need it to surf the internet. That's not what it's there for. We use it once or twice a month. And to pay crazy amounts of money, to pay $500 a month to use something twice isn't very cost effective.
No, and it's interesting that the struggles are happening now. So are they essentially, it seems like cable companies, when they have their internet, they like to slow down the internet for the older packages they have, per se, and basically try to force you to spend more money to get the latest thing. So basically they kind of do what Apple does. They slow it down so that you're frustrated, and the next thing you know, you're paying way more money. And
right. A couple of months back, they sent me an email about upgrading the system. So they sent me a new router or whatever, and I don't lease the system. I don't pay an extra $8 a month, which is $100 a year every year to pay for the router that I bought for $150 on Amazon.
Right.
But now it's like, so I'm grandfathered in. If I signed up today, I have to lease their equipment, even though I can buy the same thing because that's how they do things. So they sent me the new router, but it was only just the router. It wasn't set up for the uploading and all the other things. And it's like, that's not what I needed for. So I ended up having to ship it back. But he's like, well, eventually you're going to have to go. And it's like, oh, of course, eventually. What I pay now isn't enough. Like, I already upgraded a second time into a third time to get better speed, even though I didn't need it, because the upload's the upload, and the upload is, you just sit there and just hope it works today.
Right. Yeah. So Again, if you do have any problems, just reach out and let the FSW page know that you're having issues, because it's good to be aware of that.
Yeah,
And
sometimes like George Furman, he'll text me like, "Dude, I'm in the middle of the show. What can I do?" Like I'm on commentary. But
well,
again, that's why I yap at the production guys. It's like that's great, everything's running. How about somebody in the fucking corner have a computer and make sure the feed's working right instead of
yeah,
waiting for somebody to tell us the feed ain't working right? That's
yeah.
when we actually need the internet in the office so people can like check things.
Well, it's headache after headache, as we've established for you. So hopefully, as you address these headaches and things get more in tune and tightened up a little bit, hopefully your headaches will go down, and just in time for something else at your private residency to break and go wrong. So
Well, whoever wants to make an offer, for FSW, I might be willing to listen these days. Breaking news: CM Punk, due to backstage heat with Adam Page, may leave AEW. That's what Fightful just put out. So
oh man, if that was to happen, well,
take his
there.
ball and go home like usual.
Yep, yeah, and then what
But
does
I
that?
guess when you're in a position that he is, if he's not happy, he's just gonna say "fuck you all."
And the thing that sucks the most, and again, because of the fact that we all know people who, work there and are getting paid and have, families, you don't want to see anything go wrong. You don't want to see a company have problems to where the guys might not be employed anymore. Um, that to me, that's the if you were to do that, let's say theoretically he does that, you are basically killing the company at that point, and you're screwing all those other guys who potentially are now going to be out of work or have to be released because there's no way that they're going to have the same they're having a hard time pulling numbers with him back on the show, let alone if he steps
Well,
away.
there you go. So you save the money that you're exorbitant amount. You're paying them that they probably aren't getting back anyway. They did fine just without him, and they'll do fine with him. They'll do fine without him again. It's like they have their niche audience. It's a Ring of Honor audience plus. It's basically like instead of HBO Max, it's ROH Max. What AEW is, it's like it's that fan base with sprinkled in a lot more WWE fans than Ring of Honor did. And
Right.
they're on national TV. And before Punk, they drew similar numbers. And, pay per view wise, maybe it's more. I don't know because they don't really release those numbers.
Right.
But, they do better than Ring of Honor does. And if there's going to be heat between Adam Page and CM Punk, normally you'd be like, well, that's a squash match. But Adam
Right.
Adam Page is in with the original crew, and the Bucks are his boys, and they're the bosses there. So, it ain't going to be like good riddance, Adam Page. So it's either you don't like it, fucking leave.
Who ever thought that pro wrestling would have something like backstage politics?
I'll tell you, shocking.
Well, on that note, everyone, remember September 4th is the next show at the FSW Arena. If you want to come down and see the show, it's 2 p.m. start. And it looks like afterwards you'll be able to watch All Out potentially and maybe or maybe not see CM Punk. So,
There you go.
uh, Joe, you should know by the 4th. If Punk's not on the card, are you going to fly him in to
Yeah, I'm
watch?
going to have him work Colt Cabana.
Well, there you have it. Book it for
I
the
think I
next.
have a better chance of getting Brock Lesnar than CM Punk.
Yeah, probably.
Well, I guess we'll learn because when this airs on Wednesday, isn't Moxley wrestling Punk for the unification of the belt?
Yeah. So yeah, Wednesday night.
So I
Apparently.
guess if Moxley wins, then maybe we know Punk's out the door.
Or I mean, at this point, if Punk doesn't even show up, technically you have your champion
There
already,
you go.
Moxley. So
Or Adam Page cost CM Punk the belt, and it was a work all along, and MJF shows up. Like it's like a potpourri of work shoots, shoot works. Who even knows anymore? It's like the true wrestling fan wants to believe everything's set up. MJF's going to come back. That everything's going to be worked out. The CM Punk thing, it's got to be a work. So what's funny is, so CM Punk, the pipe bomb guy who says what he wants to say about who he wants to say it about, gets upset because Adam Page said some things in his shoot promo, that hurt the feelings of the guy who had no problem hurting everybody else's feelings.
yeah, which is, and then you think about the absurdity, of how this person will call out that promotion, and you have all this call out stuff, and one of the reasons you have it in AEW is because they're given more freedom. Well, if you're going to give the freedom, then you have to have the consequences, either as the promoter or as the wrestler, in what that line is in which you're crossing. And I don't think that line's been defined. So therefore, it's just kind of chaos when stuff like this happens. Yet on the other company's Monday night show, which TK used to like to really rub them for not having great ratings on Raw, all of a sudden now you get Johnny Gargano coming back, and no one knew about that, which is how wrestling should be.
Well, it's almost as dumb as the wrestler going on Facebook saying he wants a match with some guy that doesn't work for the company and is mad because you promoters, you need to book it. Okay, well, you can go pay for the guys. Like, why do I give a fuck about the match? Like, you want to have a match with somebody so bad, then go fucking book it yourself and start your own company. Like, everybody thinks that nobody has things in place, which I guess, I don't know. I always have things in place. We know what the matches are going to be. We have an idea. We may add a guy here or there, but we're not a company that, I know there's some in Arizona where 5-6 guys will show up and they'll get spots. And it's like, the only reason the Arizona guys got spots was because I told them to. There's plenty of times those guys come in and it's like, I got nothing for you. I'm not going to change. I got people hit me up. Hey, I was thinking of coming by for Survival of the Fittest. I'm like, this is a casino show, bro. We don't just fucking throw you on because you're in town. I could give 2 fucks.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, man, like, how many companies do you deal with that are so unprepared that you could just show up an hour and a half before a show and there's 3 spots available?
Right. Well, I guess that means unless we put up the money, we won't see the Bret the Threat versus Maxwell Hardy, huh?
Probably not.
Okay.
But, I'm not sure if Maxwell Hardy wants to come all the way here to wrestle a guy like that. You know what I mean? I don't think he wants to downgrade what he does in the wrestling business, Maxwell.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Thanks for tuning in this week. And until next week, everyone, have